I haven't had my child 50% of the time for the 2 years that we've been separated, and I want 50% of the time with Mark. You understand?
Why now? Why now of all times?
It doesn't matter.
You never wanted him.
It doesn't matter. I want 50% now, and that's my final position. 50%.
No, Rob. The only reason you want
chops the limb on the tree down, and he used an axe, and he didn't even ask me if he could cut the limb, and I have 2 young boys, and I'm concerned if he has that kind of a temper. What about my young boys?
I'm not that kind of a person.
I'm going to ask you just to listen. Welcome to North Penn Legal Services Mediation video. Mediation is a method of resolving problems between individuals. In mediation, the people with the problem, or the disputants, work with a mediator who helps them define their problems, to be able to discuss and talk with each other, and to come up with a solution that's workable for each of them. Mediation is different from going to the legal system. When you go to court, there is a judge who listens to both sides and then makes a decision on what the final outcome will be. In mediation, the disputants, or the people with the problems, work together, come up with a solution that will work for both of them. Some situations, going to court is the best idea, to be able to resolve things with the help of lawyers. But if you are able to, there are a lot of advantages to going to mediation instead of going to the court. In mediation, it will cost less, it takes less time, and you start a communication with the other person so that hopefully in the future you will be able to talk together and resolve future problems and not have to go back to either mediation or to the court system.
Mediation can be used in a variety of situations, including employer-employee, store owner-customer, neighbor disputes, and child custody. In the mediation we are about to see, the parents of a child are trying to work out a visitation schedule. The emotions of the parties are ready to spill over at any moment, but the mediator is able to keep control and help the parties compromise and reach a satisfactory agreement.
I haven't had my child 50% of the time for the 2 years that we've been separated, and I want 50% of the time with Mark. You understand?
Why now? Why now of all times?
It doesn't
you
matter.
never wanted
it doesn't
him.
matter. I want 50% now, and that's my final position. 50%.
No, Rob. The only reason you want him now is because I'm happy in my life.
That's not
and you
true.
don't have a life.
That has nothing to do with it. That's not true.
It's always been the way.
That's
not
why
true. We ended up not being together.
I'm going to interrupt here, because I feel that we've been here before.
We've been here a lot.
We've been here a lot before.
This is nothing new.
Just a minute.
This is nothing new.
Just a minute. I understand how difficult this is for both of you, but we go around and around in the same things. What I'd like to suggest is that I hear a lot of what you've given up, what you each have done.
I've given up one heck of a lot.
Just a minute.
See, this is how he is all the time.
Just a minute. What I would like to suggest is that we start with what each of you is willing to move on and give up.
I have moved and I have...
I understand that, but we are not going to get any further if both of you keep going around and around, and you will end up in court, which you've made the decision not to do that. So I'd like to ask each of you to sit for a moment and to think about what you're willing to move on, and then say that to each other. Now, you've done some movement, and you have also. I'm going to ask to start with you, Rob. I'd like to ask, what are some of the things that you could see moving on, changing on, giving on, so we can get past this impasse?
I don't want to give anything, but I want to get this over with, and I know that Carla wants Mark another Sunday a month.
All right, I'd like you to speak to Carla and say that what you understand that she would like and what you'd be willing to move on.
I know that you want Mark another Sunday a month.
I want him every Sunday.
Well, I would be willing to give you one Sunday a month, but I want to be able to send Mark to the summer camp that I choose.
No. Okay. You know what? I can go back to court and I can have my son all the time because you've been an absent father. I'm here.
That's not going to help, though, Carla. You need to be listening to what he's willing to, and then I'm going to be asking you what you. So at this point, just listen to what is willing to move on. So you're willing to move on Sundays?
I'll give up one Sunday a month, yes.
Mm-hmm. But so he doesn't have any Sundays right now. How can he say he's going to give up one?
But I want him 50% of the time on Sundays.
So you'd be willing to give me
I would give you one Sunday.
one Sunday?
Okay.
But
So-
what about the other
Carla-
Sunday? Then he can't go to Sunday school.
Carla, let me ask you, what would you be willing to move on?
I would like to have every Sunday because it's really important.
What would you be willing to move on and change and give up? That's what I'm asking you.
I just feel like I've moved so far. I've given up so much. I gave him 2 weeks in the summer. I gave him Christmas.
We're repeating again what you've already given up. I'm asking to move this along, what you are willing to.
Well, maybe if Rob would give me Sundays, I'd let Mark go to the camp in the summer that he wants to go to.
Okay, so if you were...
Not happily.
I understand that, but if you'd be willing to have Mark go to the camp that Rob would like in the summer, and you'd be willing to give up one of the Sundays, is that correct? Okay. Now we're starting to have some movement.
No, I'd only let Mark go to camp if I could have every Sunday.
No, I'm only willing to go the one Sunday.
So what I'm hearing is that you are willing to have Mark go to the summer camp that you would like him to go to, and you are willing to have him be with Carla on one Sunday a month. That's what you're both willing to give up. Now let's talk now if that would work.
That would work pretty well.
Why don't you talk to Rob and tell him how you feel about that?
I would really appreciate if you would consider that Sunday the other Sunday that you would have him, just at least letting me have him for Sunday school, because that's the reason.
How long is that going to take?
1 hour.
Just 1 hour on that Sunday?
I could pick him up from your house, take him to Sunday school, and then bring him back to your house.
And that's all that you'd want from me?
That's all I'd want.
All right, I can agree to that.
Okay, so you can agree to do that. All right, so we've worked on one issue that we've come to some resolution on. I'd like us to go on to the next ones because I know that we have more. But this is the kind of way that we're going to get this resolution. You're each going to have to give up more. Okay?
Okay. It's hard.
Yes, it is very hard.
The next mediation involves a dispute between neighbors over a tree. First, the mediator interviews each person separately so that she can understand the problem from that person's point of view.
Charlie, as we talked about on the phone, this is the opportunity you have to talk with me individually, to tell me your side of the story, the issues that are really important to you. So I'd like to have you have that opportunity now.
Well, it's the tree, and it's the limb that hangs over my yard, and that started it all. Hadn't been a problem in the 30 years that I lived here previously with the former owner, but when Amy moved in about 3 years ago, well, it just began to become a problem that just got to me more and more. The leaves would be falling on my side, and where I used to have a little plot that I'd cultivate some flowers and things like that, the sunlight wasn't getting through, and it just wasn't working. And there were a lot of other things too, and one day it just got to me, and I grabbed an axe that was near the back door there and just went out and chopped the tree down, or the limb off. That's all. It was impulsive on my part, I know, but I just had it up to here.
A few days later, after interviewing Amy, Charlie's neighbor, the mediator schedules the first joint mediation session. She begins by asking each person to summarize their position.
I know that both of you had a chance to talk individually with me when I met individually with each of you, and now you've had a chance here in the mediation to talk about what the issues are from your standpoint. So Amy, I'd like to ask you now to have your opportunity to talk here in the mediation about what the issues are. You were the one who called me, and tell me and tell us what brought you here.
Well, I have 2 young boys, and I have a neighbor who's cutting down a tree with an axe.
I can't hear. I'm sorry, but I can't hear her.
Right, that's right. You did bring that up, Charlie, when we met individually. One of the issues that Charlie has is having trouble hearing, so I placed you here so that you'd be on his good side, and I'd like to ask you to speak up, Amy, so that we can all hear together.
Well, my concern is that I had this tree, and then all of a sudden this neighbor next door comes and chops the limb on the tree down, and he used an axe. and he didn't even ask me if he could cut the limb. And I have 2 young boys. And I'm concerned if he has that kind of a temper, what about my young boys? Are they safe?
I'm not that kind of a person.
I'm going to ask you just to listen right now to Amy's side of it, and then you will have a chance to speak again. Okay, Charlie, thanks.
You know, there are leaves on the tree. I haven't been able to get to them. I'm raising 2 boys right now. I work 40 hours a week. That's low on my priority list. And so I have wanted to get around to it. There just hasn't been the time. I'm doing all this work, and he's retired. And could he rake the leaves?
I'd pay. Rake up leaves.
Charlie, just a minute. Anything more that you would like to tell us about the situation?
No, since, you know, we haven't really communicated since I've moved in. But after this axe thing, I just feel really concerned for my sons. And there's no fence, there's nothing there to protect them. I'm worried about them going over. And I thought maybe we could come together, maybe we could do this mediation thing. I don't know. I don't want to involve the cops. It's a nice neighborhood. I just don't want to go that route.
Let me ask something. You had a neighbor there before.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about how that has changed?
Yeah. Well, maybe that's part of the problem, because she was closer to me in age. And of course, over the 27 years that she lived there, we became very, very friendly. We did things together. I did things for her, chores and things like that, run errands. And of course, she did things for me. So that's part of it. But as I say, when Amy moved in, I tried to set up the same kind of a relationship with her and her 2 young boys. But as I told you earlier, you know, I sort of gave myself to her the first year she was here, but it just didn't seem to be of any interest to her. And so I guess I just stopped trying after I gave it a year to see if we could get things going the way they used to be with my former neighbor, but it just didn't work out.
Well, I don't have time to be baking cakes and making dinner for somebody else. I'm going through the drive-through as is.
Just a minute, Charlie.
I'm not going to be that other neighbor. It's not going to happen. And I've tried to be a good neighbor. I haven't made a lot of noise. I've tried to keep my children in their yard.
Amy, could I ask from your standpoint how it's been? You said that you moved in, you were new into this neighborhood. Can you talk a bit from your standpoint, how it's been moving in?
Well, I haven't had a chance to meet anybody. It's just been me just trying to get through the days. And now this on top of everything, it's just making it worse. And I don't know what to do. I'm at my wit's end right now.
Mm-hmm.
Well, as I said earlier, I'm not that kind of a person.
How do I know that?
Well,
just have to
take my word for it. I mean, it's completely out of character with me to grab an axe and go and chop down a tree. But as I say, I had it, and I had to do something, and maybe that's how I released my anger. And I'm sorry if I...
You could have sent me a note.
Just a minute, Amy. Let him.
I'm sorry if I frightened her, and certainly I mean no bodily harm to her or 2 boys. So that's.
So what do I do the next time you get angry?
Let me just say that what I see here are a number of issues. The first issue that I see is the issue of the chopping off the limb. That's obviously the very obvious presenting issue. But beneath that, I also see some things that you have had a change when your neighbor left. That's been a change for you. Different lifestyle of your neighbor now. Having children in the yard is very different. And for you, you came new to the area. You wanted things to go well. You're very busy. And you wanted to have good relationships with your neighbors, and that hasn't happened. So that's one issue that I see. Another issue that I see is that you have felt unsafe since the cutting down of the tree, of the limb on the tree, and
which I'm sorry.
And you have felt unsafe also that you've tried to have communication and weren't able to. So I see those as the issues. I see those issues.
What'd she say?
Would you say?
You didn't act very sorry.
Well, what you're saying now, what I'm starting to hear now, I'd like us to start to look for the ways that you can empathize with how she has felt, how it has been for her. Well, let's not get to solutions yet. I want to ask you to say a bit about how you see that it might have been feeling from her standpoint, and then I'm going to ask you, Amy, to talk about how you feel that it might have been from his standpoint.
Well, obviously, I know how hard it is on Amy, being a single parent, and I know her two boys are very active and very energetic, and yeah, sometimes I got a little teed off when they'd run over and trample on things in my yard, but I understand. I was a boy myself a long time ago, but yeah, I know those things happen, and I will do what is necessary, but I want it understood that I value my lot, my property very much.
Okay.
And,
thank you for that, Charlie. Amy, can you talk a little bit what you can see from having heard Charlie's story, what you can see from his standpoint?
Well, I can hear that you had a different relationship with your neighbor before than the one we have right now, but I'm overwhelmed. Rake and leaves is on the bottom of my list, my priority list, and I don't have the money to pay someone.
Amy, can you talk more about what you can see from his standpoint, though?
Well, yeah. If somebody's leaves were in my yard and it was ruining my flower bed, I would not be a happy camper, definitely.
So you can understand, Amy, you can understand how he would have gotten frustrated.
Oh, I didn't know he had a flower bed there. I
You
just
didn't
thought
know?
the
I
leaves.
can't hear her.
I didn't know you had a flower bed there.
Okay. Now you do know that, and you do know the importance. So I'd like us to move. You've already started talking about some solutions. I'd like us to
I
move
don't
to
mind
that.
replacing the tree. I saw it planted almost 30 years ago and watched it grow, and I personally took some pride, and my former neighbor, and in doing things together on both sides of our property. Well, that's all gone. But we can start all over again, take the tree down, I'll replace it, and 30 years from now it'll be just as big as it is now.
But I don't want the tree down.
So what ideas do you have for how we might resolve this?
I just need help with the leaves.
Well, raking the leaves up is not that big a deal. I don't mind doing that. I understand there are things that we both have to give in order to get along. And so her leaves on my side of the property line now, I'll just take care of those.
So you feel okay about taking care of those
Yeah, I
leaves?
don't. But again, you know, it's if I had a sense that she understood and appreciated what I was trying to do on my side, I think that that's probably all that I would need.
A typical mediation may take 3 or 4 sessions. A majority of mediations result in satisfactory agreement. We hope that this video has shown how mediation can be a good alternative to the court system. It is usually cheaper, quicker, and less stressful. When the parties can fashion their own agreement, it is a win-win situation. Perhaps you will consider becoming a mediator or suggest mediation for disputes involving you or your friends.